Art Carney and Joyce Randolph were unforgettable as Ed and Trixie Norton on the Honeymooners in the 1950s. Their chemistry felt effortless, convincing viewers that their bond had to be just as strong off-camera. But after the show ended, something strange happened. They never spoke again. No calls, no reunions, no connection. At first glance, it might seem like two coworkers simply losing touch. But was it really that simple? Or was there something deeper going on behind the scenes? The truth, as it turns out, is more complex and more emotional than anyone suspected. The mystery of why Art Carney and Joyce Randolph never reconnected has lingered for decades. Now we may finally have the answer, and it could change how we remember America's favorite TV neighbors. Section 1. The on-screen magic that hid the truth. As Ed and Trixie Norton, Carney and Randolph lit up living rooms, their chemistry felt so real, so authentic, that fans assumed they had to be close in real life. How else could they pull off such warmth and humor? But behind the scenes, their relationship was strictly professional. While Jackie Gleason and Audrey Meadows had their moments of conflict and camaraderie, Carney and Randolph kept their distance. They were polite, even warm at times, but never close. They came to work, did their jobs, and went home. No dinners, no deep conversations, no hanging around after filming. Joyce confirmed this in later interviews. She described Carney as kind and immensely talented, but emotionally closed off. He never opened up to her, or to anyone on the cast. Still, the illusion of closeness persisted. Fans continued asking Joyce for years what Carney was like off camera. They assumed the connection they saw on screen had lasted, but the reality was simpler and sadder. Their relationship began and ended with the show. The real mystery, though, wasn't why they drifted, it was why they never connected in the first place. To understand that, we have to look at who Art Carney was when the cameras weren't rolling. Carney's personal life was shrouded in privacy and pain. He had served in WRYO and was injured during the Battle of Normandy. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But the physical wound wasn't the only one. Carney struggled with what we now know as PTSD, alongside depression, anxiety, and a long battle with alcohol. To the public, he was the lovable Ed Norton. In reality, he was a deeply private man who found fame overwhelming. Unlike his co-star Jackie Gleason, Carney didn't bask in the spotlight. He did what was required, then withdrew. He avoided parties, declined interviews, and kept to himself. Even after winning an Oscar in 1974 for Harry and Tonto, he disappeared from public life again. His fame never sat comfortably with him. He preferred solitude over celebration. This private nature extended to every area of his life. Joyce later said Carney was respectful and professional, but never open. There was no warmth beyond what was necessary. He built walls and kept them up. In this light, Carney's silence wasn't about animosity, it was about self-preservation. He pulled away from everything and everyone that reminded him of a life he didn't fully embrace. Joyce Randolph never criticized Carney. She simply told the truth. He was talented, professional, and distant. She had no warning that he would cut off contact. After filming ended, she expected to stay in touch, but there was nothing. No goodbye, no phone call. He was just gone. At first, she wondered if it was personal, but over time, it became clear he had withdrawn from everyone. Even Gleason and Meadows rarely heard from him. Carney didn't attend reunions, tributes, or interviews. It was as though the Honeymooners had never happened for him. Joyce never speculated on why. She simply said he was quiet. And while she remained gracious in every interview, there was a subtle sadness in her words, a recognition that the connection fans saw had never existed in real life. She had accepted it. But the silence still left questions. After the show ended, Joyce and Art took very different paths. Joyce stepped back from television, focusing on family and theater. Right. She married, had a child, and lived a quiet life in New York. She didn't chase fame, but she welcomed it when it found her. She always made time to talk about the Honeymooners with kindness and pride. Carney's path was more complex. He took on dramatic roles, including his Oscar-winning turn in Harry and Tonto. He proved he was more than a sidekick, but with success came more retreat. He skipped award shows, declined interviews, and kept moving. Unlike Joyce, who embraced the show's legacy, Carney distanced himself from it. He never attended Honeymooners tributes or reunions. A physical separation, Joyce in New York, Carney moving around, only deepened the emotional distance. Joyce continued to speak warmly about the show. Carney remained steady, and when fans asked Joyce if she'd ever heard from him again, the answer never changed. No.
What was it?
It wasn't only Joyce Randolph that Carney cut ties with. He pulled away from everyone connected to the show. Even Jackie Gleason, who had a deep professional bond with Carney, was left behind. Audrey Meadows also confirmed that Carney vanished after the show. No contact, no appearances. There was no drama, no falling out, just distance. Some suspected resentment over being typecast. Others pointed to his ongoing mental health struggles. Perhaps it was both. Carney didn't want to revisit a time he associated with difficulty, even if it brought him fame. He turned down nearly every opportunity to reunite with the cast. He didn't show up when the Honeymooners was honored. He didn't send statements. He was gone. And his silence left fans, former co-stars, going back up. Joyce continued to honor the show. She gave interviews, attended events, and spoke fondly about her time as Trixie. She remained the last public voice of the Honeymooners. And yet, even into her later years, her answer about Carney stayed the same. She never heard from him again. She described him as a genius and very quiet. There was no bitterness, just a quiet recognition that some people live in their own world and that Carney had chosen his. Meanwhile, Carney grew older out of the spotlight. After his Oscar win, he made a few more appearances and stayed mostly here. When he died in 2003, no public farewell to the fans or co-stars who had admired him. No final interviews, no reflections. Joyce, who lived until 2024, she spoke with warmth. Carney had made this choice. She had made hers. Over the years, fans wondered, was there a feud, a falling out? But there was never any evidence of that. No arguments, no hurt feelings, just silence. Carney's withdrawal was across the board. He skipped reunions, tributes, and interviews. Even his closest colleagues never heard from him. Some speculated that he resented being remembered as Ed Norton. Others thought it was tied to his lifelong struggles with trauma and addiction. Maybe he just wanted peace. Joyce never joined the speculation. She repeated the truth. He was private, he was kind, and he never reached out. In the end, the silence became its own story, a reflection of a man who gave everything on screen and almost nothing off it. Carney and Joyce Randolph created one of television's most beloved couples. But their connection ended when the camera stopped. There was no grand parting, no dramatic rift, just two people who played their roles perfectly and then walked away. Joyce accepted that reality. She never received a call or note. Not after the show, not after the Oscar, not ever. Carney's silence was not about Joyce. It was who he was, private, guarded, withdrawn. Joyce chose a different path. She shared her story, her memories, and her respect. She kept the show's legacy alive. Their story is a reminder. Not all on-screen connections translate to real life. Sometimes the bond ends with the final scene. Carney disappeared, Joyce remained, and between them, a quiet space. A mystery that fans still ponder. A legacy built on laughter, shadowed by silence. Carney's story doesn't end with a scandal, a tabloid headline, or a tell-all memoir. It ends in a quiet Connecticut home, surrounded by the kind of peace he spent a lifetime chasing. There were no dramatic curtain calls, no self-mythologizing interviews in his twilight years. In fact, Carney's final act felt more like a fade-out than a finale. And yet, in that silence, there's something profound. For decades, he was misunderstood, not by his peers or critics, but by the machinery of fame itself. To the world, he was Ed Norton, lovable, eccentric, always the sidekick. What many missed was that Carney, in life and in art, carried the soul of a leading man. But he never chased the spotlight, he recoiled from it. Fame embarrassed him, applause unsettled him. What brought him peace was not the roar of a live studio audience, but the quiet of a small-town backyard in the company of his wife. He won an Oscar not because he campaigned for it, but because the performance was undeniable. He delivered one of the most haunting portrayals of loneliness ever captured on film, not out of ambition but instinct. He acted because he had to, then retreated when he no longer needed to. His legacy, then, is not loud, it's not viral, it's not built on Instagram retrospectives or studio documentaries. It lives in grainy black and white reruns and a quiet performance in Harry and Tonto that still makes people cry. It lives in the space between laughs, where sadness, dignity, and humanity live. In an industry obsessed with self-promotion, Art Carney chose dignity over desperation, restraint over reinvention. He wasn't trying to be remembered, he was trying to live. And perhaps that's why he's worth remembering.